In any life, we have highs and lows, light and dark, wins and losses. What happens when we encounter that moment in time when what happens next could change everything? Join us as we step into another person's inspirational moment and see how we can connect their experience to ours. This is Greg Stevens, and you're listening to A Shot of Inspiration. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of A Shot of Inspiration. I'm your host, Greg Stevens, and today we have a gentleman that I met, I guess it was probably about maybe 6 months to a year before COVID, maybe not that much. But I was doing some cryotherapy, working on that. Nam, how low does that cryotherapy get?
It's powered by like nitrogen gas, so it gets below like -200 or something like that. Yeah.
And I would do that for 3 minutes. This is Nam Nguyen. He's the person who helped me out. And he and I got to know each other over several months. And we had some of the best conversations. And I found Nam to be just a kind, caring soul. And what I love about Nam was he was trying to finish up, and he already has finished up his certification for being a chiropractor. But he moved away from Austin for a little while and came back and gave me a call. And we went to lunch, had a great time catching up. And I thought, I really would love to have you on because Nam is younger than me, much younger, but he's also got an amazing energy and amazing view of life. And I just wanted to have Nam come on and share with our guests a little about the struggles he's had in his life, some of the things that he's overcome. And he's back in Austin now. And I'm actually going to start going to him for a couple of adjustments. Nam, this is Nam Nguyen, everyone. Thank you, Nam, for being on our show. Really appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much, Greg. I'm truly honored to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's talk about, we met, like I said, I was doing cryotherapy. Nam, just tell people who you are, what you're doing now, and walk us through your journey about how you got to where you are in life right now.
Yeah. So we met when I was working for the cryotherapy. I guess I would always call it a clinic, but it's just a place for natural therapy and a wellness center. And I was in the middle of a transition period where I had finished school, but I wasn't practicing yet. And I was working on my board exams. Cryotherapy was a nice little segue. And it was just some things to keep on resume and kind of have a job in between. I had always grown up wanting to do healthcare, something in the medical profession, and chiropractic was the one that was the most calling towards me. Since I was in high school, I knew I wanted to be a chiropractor. So we met and during my transition period, and just about like a few months after that, life really changed. A lot of things happened in my life and in my family's life. And since then, it's completely changed the trajectory of my life, of course, for the better.
What were some of those things that you say kind of life altering for you?
So my whole life has just been working towards the goal, go to school, and I finished college and I finished on a Friday and I started chiropractic school on a Monday. And that was just always been the trajectory, was just finish school. And even throughout school, I never really think about the future because I was just in survival mode. I just wanted to get my degree and start life. But the questions I didn't ask myself was like, what am I going to do with life? What am I going to do with this degree, with all these credentials and training? During that time when we met was actually the universe telling me, what do you want? What is it that you want? What do you want to do? And I remember during our first conversation, our one-on-one, we had breakfast one time. And one thing that you said that still sticks with me is that you said the universe does not like holes, meaning that you got to fulfill your lesson. You got to learn your lessons before you move on to the next grade. And I realized up until that point where we met was that I did not finish certain lessons. And sure, I got bumped into the next grade and whatnot, but ultimately I didn't go on to the final grade, I guess you would say. And that was a time for me to truly reflect and be like, all right, what are the things that I have been skipping over? What are the things that I have been fast tracking that I haven't really fully covered yet? Yeah. So the thing that happened during that time was that when we first met And then all throughout the time where I left the company, before that, my niece had passed away and she was 16 years old. And at that time, I was around like 27 years old. And I've had several deaths in the family and friends and whatnot throughout my life, but this was the closest one to home. This is the one that I've known since she was a baby. And that really put life into perspective. And when we had spoken and when we had met, I was in the middle of a transition period, meaning that like I wanted just to shift everything. Something inside me was calling me to completely change everything. That changed the trajectory of my life, the way I saw life, my the way I looked at my physicality, the way I looked at what healthcare even means, my career. Why am I doing this? I knew I've always wanted to be a healthcare and become a provider, but now is the deeper question: why do you want to do this? And so since then, that has been the catalyst to my spiritual growth and my spiritual path. And at that time was when one of the first times in my life that I truly surrendered and been like, this is life and this can happen at any time to any of us. How can we live life to the fullest? How can we live life with the most fire, the most passion? And when I had met you, that was when I was on my way out of Texas, switch up the environment, move to California, where I'm originally from. And I have a lot of friends and family back there. And I just wanted this to change the energy.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me ask you, looking back, what do you think you missed having your eyes open? I think it's so interesting because I felt when you were describing it, I was the same way. I was just like, okay, I needed to go to college next to do the next thing, to do the next thing. And that was what I was focused on until
Mhm.
finally I fulfilled all that. Most of mine was later in my sales career before I found my calling and my passion. It hit me in my late 30s, but I had no idea. I think I missed so much along the way. Doesn't mean I missed out. It just
Mhm.
means there are a lot of things in front of me that I just wasn't paying attention to. Do you feel the same way? If I would have been paying attention, I might have ended up maybe where you are right now a little sooner. I don't know.
Yeah, I would make it analogous as you're just asleep almost. And this is an awakening, one of the moments in life where there's an awakening, right? And so going through the motions, getting things off the checklist, finishing school, doing whatever family society tells you to do until you wake up and you're like, what is it that I want?
Yeah.
How do I honor my soul?
So now that you're a full blown chiropractor, you got your practice here in Austin. What are some of the barriers you run to? Maybe also some of the successes you've had as you've stepped out all on your own. You're not a part of a practice, you're part of your own making right now.
Yeah, it's a little bit unorthodox in terms of how soon I went to become on my own. I did have some training on meaning that I worked for another practice for a little bit of time, but and it's a great practice. I love the people that I worked with, but it's just that I felt that in my soul there was much more that I wanted to do for me, pave my own way. And of course, the challenges that come with that when you're trekking through the forest without a path really in front of you, clearly laid out, and you're just like, just walking through it with your own machete, just going through it on your own. The challenges are that since I'm one of the only ones in my entire like family that went into the entrepreneurial route, I realized that running a business and doing things on your own is the hardest part because not so much references, but yeah, not so much references that I can turn to at all times, meaning that I am very grateful that I can hit up any of my friends or mentors along the ride, but ultimately it's just myself. And I realized that when I signed up for this, everything that I signed up for to honor my soul, doing it my own way on my own path. The sacrifices that, of course, is that there's not a consistent income. It's not so much structure. It's one of my life lessons is to create structure for myself. The success that comes with that is that I feel so alive. This is the most alive I've ever felt before. Because going through school, I was always just answering just to studying for this or jumping through hoops or just being on not my own schedule. And now I get to very cognitively, consciously pick every step that happens in my practice, from how the business card looks to which patient I'll be seeing that day, how long my flow is, my protocols are, what protocols I'll be using that day, that patient. And one of the best things I've realized to this point is that every single patient that I see, I get to put my heart and soul into that. I'm not looking at the clock because like the schedule says this. No, it's my own schedule. I know exactly what needs to happen. And I get to pour my very own way of treating that patient.
Well, what are some of the stories that maybe insights that you've seen with people around needing adjustments or their overall health? Because people, I don't think health is improving. I think it's actually going downhill because of our diets. I know I need to work on mine. My wife is working with me on that as well and change some things. What do you typically see, and what are some of the problems that maybe some things they could do to help their overall health that maybe you've seen that you give advice or you give direction on?
That's a good question. So my outlook and perspective on health has evolved and it's constantly evolving. So when I first got to chiropractic school, it was like, yeah, pharmaceuticals and you are what you eat and all these vitamins and superfoods and whatnot. And there's can be like a plethora of information. And what I've learned throughout life so far at this age so far is that let's simplify everything. Let's bring everything back down to the foundation, right? So when I was in school, when we learned about all these chemicals that are in our body, how it can affect our gut health, all these pesticides and whatnot, I became like almost hypochondriac where I'm like, oh my God, like eating this apple, the apple skin has all this. It was just overwhelming. And it got to a point where I was like, my dietary practices were just so warped because I was just paranoid, angry, just disgruntled about like, how can this happen to us? And how can the people that were in charge care about us, not really care about us, all that. Up to this point, at this age, I'm so glad that I realized that. But now I see it as, when you're tuning an instrument, it goes one way, goes the other way, but ultimately you start to refine it. So I'm getting closer and closer to my happy medium, which is ultimately the foundations of everything is let's just start from the inside. First of all, let's just be happy. Let's just be calm and at peace, right? And one thing that we learned in chiropractic school is that one thing heals, everything else heals. When nothing is really compartmentalized, your physical, your chemical, and your emotional and spiritual inputs and outputs, they all are all related and connected. To answer your question is, what are some tips about being healthy? Let's go back to foundation. Let's go back to what are we doing physically? What are we intaking chemically? What are we thinking? How are we thinking? How are we processing our emotions? Let's just go back to the foundations of that.
Right.
Yeah.
That's one thing my chiropractor that I used to go to, he said, think of your spinal cord as the central nervous system where everything flows. And if it's out of whack, everything tends to be out of whack. Get everything in alignment, things can actually begin to heal. They can begin to set where they need to. And I find a huge difference when I get massages, when I go to chiropractor, when I go to acupuncture. I do all of those. And even after my back surgery, I found that having all of that, it's important because we do get out of alignment, not only physically, but emotionally, spiritually, and all of that as well. So I like what you're talking about, getting back to that foundation. You're not just talking about the physical, you're talking about the emotional, mental, and spiritual as well, aren't you?
Absolutely. That's one of the first lessons we learn in school. We see that health is chemical, emotional, and physical for the most part. And when you talked about alignment, right? It's everything in this universe is about flow. It's about circulation, energy, right? Chi, prana, whatever you want to call it. And when things are aligned, right, the energy can flow beautifully and balanced. My good friend and I were talking, and he's a doctor of osteopathic, and we just had an aha moment where hey, when they talk about chakras and how it's good for them to balance, if your chakras are in the energy centers of your body, wouldn't it make sense to have your body aligned? Oh, yeah. So that's like the non-tangible way of looking at it is the energetic and whatnot. The scientific paradigm looking at it is when you align the spine with moving interference, the nervous system can innervate and communicate with the rest of your body at its optimal functionality.
Yeah. This is something I've never done it. My old business partner did. You might have heard of it, Qigong. It's a movement of energy.
Mhm,
An old Chinese practice from thousands of years ago.
mhm,
And I've heard some people talking about their chakras, clearing them and moving energy through their body. Been looking at that for a long time with my old business partner because he went through that. He would come back after class and explain. It was really great because I got to learn so much. I wasn't taught about my chakras. I was growing.
mhm,
I wasn't
mhm.
taught about the way energy flows through you and down and up. That's just it. Everything we do is really, it's a vibration of energy. I know some people that don't like chiropractors. I've always had good experiences. People who are concerned about acupuncture. It's like acupuncture is like one of the best things I've ever done. And to me, acupuncture is a massage for the nerves. You get a
Oh,
massage for the muscles. The acupuncture is a massage for the nerves. It deals with the electrical system.
that's a really good analogy.
And yeah, and the structural is just the chiropractor. You've got the bones of it. You got to get everything lined up. And I used to go before I had my back surgery. I would go to all three in one day: chiropractor, massage therapist, and an
Yeah,
acupuncturist. Yeah,
really good, really good.
yeah,
Yeah, a lot of it, like we said earlier, is that like everything is just energy, right? And Chinese, they call it qigong. In Indian culture, it's called prana, right?
okay.
It's just energy flowing and circulating. And the scientific paradigm of the West, we call it earth conduction flow. We like to quantify everything.
You've been going for a little while here in Austin. Anyone who's listening, how can they find you? What are you trying to do with your business? You're talking about possibly going to different organizations and maybe finding different people. Just share with us what kind of your ideal client would be, what you're looking for. I think you're really know what you're doing, and I love that you're out here. I'd love to help you any way I could. So I don't know who might hear this that could use your services, but I would love for them to be able to get a hold of you. So how could someone get a hold of you, and what are you looking for as far as business goes?
Thank you so much for the support. I really appreciate that. I'm currently working on my website. You could reach me at email, LinkedIn, and I have a cell phone as well. And I'm in the Austin area, North Austin area.
For those who are listening, spell out your email address for us.
Okay, got it. It is Dr. period Nam Nguyen, NAMNGUYEN period wellness at gmail.com. Dr. Nam Nguyen wellness gmail.com.
Great.
Great.
Okay. Who are you looking for? What typically, or also organizations that may be interested in helping working with?
So I actually am going through a kind of metamorphosis right now within practice, within business as well. I have a little office here in Austin. It's like a first step. And I like to see my patients in here, my own patients in here. And I'm looking for patients or patients that are looking for me. It has to go both ways. My flow is one-on-one, and I like to educate and talk about their body and their goals. My practice and flow usually runs around like 20 minutes to 45 minutes. So it's a little more time in terms of a typical chiropractic visit. And what I do is acupressure. That is actually one of my main practices is chiropractic and acupressure, which is like the harmony and synergy of both cultures, you would say, the Western, Eastern philosophies coming together. Because that's myself. I'm a product of both worlds. This is the in-person approach. And I'm currently right now developing a virtual presence. And this virtual presence is basically my training and my way of practice online. And of course, it's not physical, meaning it's not going to be hands-on, but it's going to be just like a 30-minute masterclass, what you call like a workshop. And those I'm going to reach out to be worldwide organizations, companies, tech companies, firms, law firms, school districts, universities. And this is geared towards workplace and workspace clarity And what that means is that workspaces means that like if you're in front of a computer, there needs to be a proper foundation of how to sit, how to operate in front of the computer. And I've utilized my training within ergonomics and biomechanics, as well as breathing. Wow. Life is about breathing. Let's take it back, simplify. Let's simplify everything. Let's bring it back to the breath. And yeah,
Very first thing, you don't have that, you're not going anywhere.
exactly.
That's great. Nam, thank you so much for being on the show as we move forward and as you grow. Love to have you back on, find out how the practices progress as we've done this. I love who you are. I love your constant learning attitude. And I really appreciate you being on the show today. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Greg. It's such an
Right.
honor.
And everyone, thanks for watching another episode of A Shot of Inspiration. I'll see you next time. My sister always tells me, hit that like button for us or whatever the buttons are.
Smash that
Just
subscribe
click
button.
'em. And you know what to do. You're probably much more advanced on these things than I am. So with that, I want to say thank you so much. We'll see you next time on A Shot of Inspiration. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to this episode of A Shot of Inspiration. If you like this or any of our other episodes, make sure you rate it and share it with a friend. This is Greg Stevens, and we look forward to being with you next time. Until then, be bold, be courageous, and respectfully speak your truth.